something that I think people need to hear in these times. There's a British philosopher called Alan Watts. I don't know if any of you are familiar with him, but I find him just fascinating, and the things that he I think spent a lot of time over in the Far East, and a lot of his kind of philosophies, but also the way he speaks and the way he articulates himself are just brilliant, just really, really brilliant. So I just think that people today can really learn from the things that he was teaching, even though he's no longer with us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take us through a video of Alan Watts, and you like kind of listen to the things that he says, and I'm just going to commentate along the way as to how I think that it's relevant for the modern age, because I really think it is. So so let's head over to my PC. You follow along and let me know what you think.
A person who thinks all the time has nothing to think about except thoughts. So he loses touch with reality and lives in a world of illusions. By thoughts, I mean specifically chatter in the skull, perpetual and compulsive repetition of words, of reckoning and calculating. I'm not saying that thinking is bad. Like everything else, it's useful in moderation. A good servant, but a bad master.
So the premise of the video is don't think too much, don't overthink. And I think that there's a lot of people who do this, and I try my hardest not to. It's about just living in the moment and not thinking too much, not kind of letting it fester over in your head about what's happening in your life, and something somebody said, or a message that somebody posted online. Or don't think too much, just rely on your instincts, really. Let's see what else he says.
And all so-called civilized peoples have increasingly become crazy and self-destructive because through excessive thinking they have lost touch with reality.
Through excessive thinking, people have lost touch with reality. And it's true. I mean, how much do you ever go outside and just sit in the outdoors and only allow your mind and your body to connect with the outside world? So do you ever sit there and just let the sun touch your skin and let the breeze hit your face? And you don't have to think about those things. You don't have to think about the sun touching your skin, unless you're like me, real pasty and get burnt easily. But just feeling the world around you, just feeling the connection that you have with the world around you. There's no need to think. Do you do that? And if you don't, then why aren't you doing it? And it's the same with anything. It's kind of blanking the mind. And because as he said, the majority of thoughts are just chatter, and they're not necessary. So do you ever just sit down somewhere and just enjoy being? Just enjoy being a person. Just enjoy being a being in this world.
That's to say, we confuse signs, words, numbers, symbols, and ideas with the real world. Most of us would have rather money than tangible wealth, and a great occasion is somehow spoiled for us unless photographed. And to read about it the next day in the newspaper is oddly more fun for us than the original event.
I mean, this is something that's a plague, I think, on the world at the moment. It's not enjoying the moment, but looking back at the moment because you've taken a photo and using that as validation that it was a great moment, when in fact the moment was interrupted by the photograph. Think about that for a moment. We far too often now try and capture moments to look at later instead of enjoying it fully. And it's so sad. It's really sad to do that. Me personally, I struggle with things like Instagram because I don't post a lot of photos because I don't know what to post. Like genuinely, I'm so in the moment and enjoying everything that I prefer to have that moment and have that inside my head. I don't want to look back at a 2D image or a 2D moving video. I don't want to do that. I just want to enjoy it, whether it's a barbecue, whether it's walking on the beach. I don't want to take photos of walking on the beach. I know what a beach looks like. I don't need to see myself on the beach. It's more a case of I want to live that moment to the fullest. The sound, as long as I'm taking a photo, I'm then concentrated on a little screen. And within that screen, then you've got the beach and the sea and everything else. I don't want that. I want the sound of the waves in my ear. I want the smell of the sea in my nose and the sand underneath my feet. That's what I want. I don't want to imagine what that was like years from now, looking back. In the words of Theo Von, onward.
This is a disaster. For as a result of confusing the real world of nature with mere signs, such as bank balances and contracts, we are destroying nature. We are so tied up in our minds that we've lost our senses.
That's pretty much what I just said. We're tied up in our minds that we're losing our senses. We're losing that kind of touch that we have. Like an example, I talked earlier about the fire that I had the other night outside with my wife, and we just sat there and we just enjoyed the fire. And from time to time, pieces of burning wood would fall off the fire. So I'd try and pick them back up again and put them back in the fire. And there'd be one end that wasn't blackened, and it'd still be wood. It wasn't yet burned. So you'd pick it up, but occasionally that wood was still extremely hot. And so I've still got it now. Little blisters and little burns just on the tips of my finger. And do you know what? I mean, there weren't big burns or anything else, but you know what? Like that's my memory, because I was alive. Like I touched something. I used my senses. I used my sense of touch to realize something was hot. So that's what it's really about is the touch. And I don't mind that I burnt my finger a little bit because I enjoyed the moment, and I was using the senses I was given to feel the world around me. So that's like my version. I guess that's my version of photos. Is I've just got a lasting little bit of, like, it's nearly gone now, but I've got a lasting little bit of like callus there from that burn. But onward.
Time to wake up. What is reality? Obviously, no one can say, because it isn't words. It isn't material, that's just an idea. It isn't spiritual, that's also an idea, a symbol. Reality is this. Realize that anybody whom you consider in matters spiritual, psychological, and so on, as an authority, has this authority because of your opinion that he has, or she has. So
I just want to bring that to your attention. people who have, and this is really relevant when it comes to things like government, when it comes to when you're at work with your boss. People have authority because of the opinion that you have that they have authority. Think about that. The only reason that people attain authority and control over other people is because the people that they control have the opinion and accept that they have authority over them. So it's only an illusion. It's an illusion based on opinions and based on acceptance of being under an authority, under a control.
How do you know? If you say, for example, like a Protestant fundamentalist, that you believe in the Bible, that the Bible is inspired, or you may say, as a more liberal kind of Christian, that Jesus Christ is the greatest being that ever lived on earth. How do you know? It's your opinion that that is so.
This is why I love Alan Watts. The only reason that people believe, the only reason that people can say that somebody like Jesus or Muhammad in Islam or the Buddha or any of these kind of gods and kind of messengers and things like that ever existed or exist is only because they believe it. They have to believe it first for it to exist. I mean, think about that, and then on top of that, the whole world is at war over religion and over believing in something that you first need to believe in before it exists. Without your belief, it doesn't exist. So there are things in this world, there are things that people believe all around the world, and gods and mythical beings and things like that exist to those people who believe in them. So without them believing in them, they don't exist. So in that sense, should the wars that are going on over religion exist? Because the gods that command that war only exist because of the opinions of the people that follow them. It's such a weird, think about it, it's such a weird world we live in.
Lots of people may have told you so, and you may be very impressed by those people, but you bought it. And so therefore, if you say, well, I would like to become like that, that's an expression of the way you are. You couldn't feel, I would like to become like that, like the authority, like the Christ, except as an expression of the way you are now. And the way you are now is the quaking mess. And therefore, your emulation, your desire, your idealism to become like Christ is merely one of the appetites of your quaking mess. It's an expression of you as you are. And don't fool yourselves. I'm not trying to put you down by talking about the quaking mess. The quaking mess may be in fact something very, very natural. The way we are.
The quaking mess. So when you want to be, people always want to look to be something better than they are, they idolize people. That's how I really want to be. That's the sort of person that I want to be like. So Watts talks there about Christ. You want to be more like Jesus Christ because he was so amazing, incredible, whatever. But that quaking mess is your starting point. That's where you start, because if you were already a righteous person who was already in kind of the position of Christ, and you already lived your life in that way, you wouldn't need to aspire to be like him. because you'd already be there. So you wouldn't bother. So you have to be a quaking mess to aspire to something better, which again is just, it blows my mind because without being in the position you are as a quaking mess, then there's no need to believe in Jesus Christ or God. So the quaking mess is everybody, really. Forget about religion. We're all, that's our human condition, our natural human state is to be that kind of, that quaking mess that doesn't need, or that needs some guidance. But then you start to think, well, if that's the natural state, do we really need to be told we need to aspire to be something else? We need to be better, but do we need to have idols that we say, I want to be like that person? I'm not sure we do. I think that you, rather than that, I think looking internally at yourself when you're that quaking mess and bettering yourself just on a daily journey, but accepting that you're a quaking mess, that you're not perfect, that you have worries, that you're always thinking, that you're always stressed. Understanding and accepting that you have all of those things is and then learning how to develop that and get better, I think is the best way to become a more rounded individual. Onward.
The state of affairs, and we shouldn't be ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed of it. I've told you of it frankly. But it is important not to fool oneself about this. But there doesn't there, seem to remain a problem about existence, about being alive. Now let's go into what is that problem at the sort of nitty-gritty level. Very basic in our thinking is that we, as it say, one must live. We need to survive, to go on. We need, therefore, money for food, for this, that, and the other. We must go on. And we know that we're not going to get away with it for very long. That after a certain number of years we're going to die. The thing is going to end. The thing that we call I is going to be as it is in sleep. Deep sleep with no dreams. But that between now and that happening, there may be the most ghastly pains. Not only perhaps the pains of physical disease, or being wounded or hurt, but the pains of worrying about our failure of responsibility to people who depend on us. And we suffer other people's suffering simply because we're sensitive and have imagination and participate in their sufferings, and our adrenaline and our chemicals respond simply by imagination to the sufferings of other people. And what about that? And so we can look at these problems and say, now, quite obviously, all these problems cannot be solved in a physical way. That is to say, we do not expect in our lifetime that medical skill will make us exempt from death. We do not seriously expect that human beings will all learn to be nice to each other and will refrain from war and horrors of that kind, racial prejudice and so on. We don't seriously expect to find a method of being protected by taking some sort of drug against all possible disease and pain. So therefore we say, now maybe there's another way around. Maybe that instead of solving these problems at the technical level, we could solve them at the psychological and spiritual level by so disciplining ourselves, by so doing something with ourselves, that we wouldn't be afraid of it anymore. And so, in accord with that motivation, we seek out spiritual teachers, psychological teachers, this, that, and the other. Could we somehow be made over so that we don't worry about the quaking mess? I
think one of the things is that we don't do is to kind of sit down and try and figure out what we fear, why we're always stressed, why we're always worried, what we worry about. We don't sit down and figure that out in our minds. And that's what we need to do. You need to take time to be able to go inside yourself and test yourself mentally and see kind of where you feel that you're lacking and how do you make that better. So that might be going and seeing therapists, spiritual or psychological leaders. It might be where you need to talk through your problems and just have some guidance of why do I feel like this and what do I need to do to change how I feel.
A spiritual discipline or whatever. And you see, if you examine that this wanting to overcome the quaking mess and not have it anymore, that precisely is the quaking mess. The thing that we object to about ourselves is precisely what we do about overcoming it. In other words, the activity that we employ in overcoming it is the mess that we object to. Do you see that? And it's very important to realize that. Then if you do realize it, you raise the question, then what can I do?
So what Alan Watts is saying there is that we concentrate so much on becoming better and changing our lives, and this is what I need to do because there's all of these evils in the world, there's people suffering and I need to get better, and all of those things that are exactly that quaking mess. That's what's stressful. Always seeking something that is oppressive to you mentally, and then trying to figure it out and trying to get past it and trying to defeat it. That is the quaking mess. So you might have got away from one stress, but you're putting yourself into another area of stress. So you've continued the cycle.
What can I do to transform the quaking mess into the state of mind of the true mystic? Well, if you are the quaking mass, there is obviously nothing you can do to transform yourself into the state of mind which you idealize as that of being the true mystic, the Christ, the saint, or whatever. So you realize that everything is phony, that all your ideals are simply manifestations of the quaking mess trying to get away from itself. And that you are put in the position of, it is absolutely necessary for me to be different from the way I am, but there's absolutely nothing I can do about it, because being the way I am, I cannot be different from that.
You are who you are, and it's a suffering to try and be somebody different. And this is just, I'm just going to equate this to my experience at the moment with this podcast is when I first started out, I was doing I was trying to do vlogging, and I was sitting in front of the camera. I had a bit of a script going on, and I was like, this, and I struggled. It was a real struggle to do that. It just never came out right. It just looked so false, so contrived. So I just didn't look natural, and I couldn't figure out what it was. And the reason was because I just wasn't being me. This is me. This is me talking. And if I say and whatever else comes out of my mouth, then that's so be it. This is me. So I'm allowing you, or I'm bringing you in to see me as I am. This is me, and so I'm always trying to just be me, and just not try and fix it so that I'm somebody different, somebody else. This is me. And that's what Watts is saying.
Let's say this, but if we can put it in different ways. I know that I ought not to be selfish. And I would very much like to be an unselfish person, but the reason why I want to be an unselfish person is that I am very selfish and would far more love myself and respect myself if I were unselfish. You see? I know that I ought to love God. And whatever. And why do you want to love God? Well, because God is the biggest boss, and it's best to be on the side of the big battalions.
It's my thought, and I'm not here to bash religions, although I do think that they're kind of the root of most evil that happens these days. But if you think about this, if you have to rely on the teachings of an imaginary, because you have to imagine it for it to exist, deity that will teach you about your life and how you need to live your life, and you want to be more like them, and you want to do it for their favor, that they'll look favorably upon you if you do everything you can to be a better person and follow their teachings and everything else. If you do all of those things, what you're doing effectively is you're shirking the responsibility to take control of your life. You're saying, I'm not in control. There's a higher power that's in control. And therefore, they're responsible for what happens to me because I might have been bad or whatever else. So anything that happens in my life where I suffer, it's not my fault. Maybe I've been naughty, but actually I'm being punished. It's a lack of responsibility, isn't it, in the individual? And so that's another reason why I don't think religion's the best answer. Without religion, you take responsibility. It's you. You take the responsibility.
That's really why I want to do it. In other words, because I'm looking for the safety of my own spiritual skin. So I think I ought to love God. All sophisticated saints have known this. St. Paul understood it, St. Augustine understood it, Martin Luther understood it. They didn't know what the hell to do about it. But there was nothing to do about it. And yet something has to be done. Obviously. But you realize when you really look into yourself, there's nothing you can do. And this, therefore, is our point of departure. That we here, perhaps not, mutually realize there is nothing we can do to be anything else than what we are. To feel any other way than what we feel at this moment. And to be then this quaking mess which has the capacity for the horrors about what life can do to us. However, this isn't as much of a blind alley, a cul-de-sac, as it sounds. Because if you discover a blind alley, it tells you something. Watch the flow of water when it crosses over an area of land, and you will see that it puts out fingers, and some of them stop because they come into blind alleys. And the water doesn't pursue that course. It simply rises, and then it finds a way it can go. But it never uses any effort. It only uses weight, gravity. It takes the line of least resistance and eventually finds a course. Now we will do the same thing. Only we're ashamed of it. But we're going to do it anyhow. We think that when we come to a dead end, a blind alley, oh, I failed. Supposing the water, at each place where a finger of water stretches out over dry ground and doesn't go any further because the land is too high, the water were to say to itself, I failed. We would say it was neurotic water. Just wait, and it will find a way. Now, when you find, you see, that there's this predicament that I've been describing to you, that there's no way of transforming yourself to become this fearless, joyous, divine being as distinct from the quaking mass. When he says no way, this is not a gloomy announcement. It is a very, very important communication. It's telling you something. Because the land is telling the water, this isn't the way to go. There's another way. Try over here. So in the same way, life is telling you that's not the way to go.
Life is telling you that's not the way to go. So in your day-to-day life, you're stressing and you're putting yourself through the ringer, and you're destroying yourself, and you're fighting against the tide, instead of just being like water, as what says, just follow the path of least resistance. And so that means everything. That means just exist. That means your urges. Follow your urges. So when people overthink, for example, oh, I've just met a new girl or a new boy, and I don't know whether to send them a message, just do it. Just send a message. Follow the path of least resistance. Just do what you feel. It's not that complicated. It's not that deep. Just let it go. Just do it. And then if, as what says, if you're the water that comes to the end of that finger that's stretched out, and it stops and it says you can't go that way, it's because it's telling you there's a better way. There's a path of least resistance that's more apt for you to follow. So then you go the other way. But don't make a big thing about this dead end, because the dead end means that there's a better path that's going to lead to something better. So the worrying and things, that's what people do these days. They overthink things and they worry that they're coming to a dead end, and so that's a failure. And I can't do anything. Oh, that's the failure. That's the end of the line, and there's nothing else I can do. But it's not true. Go a different way. See it as it's redirecting you to a different path. The things that you've learned along the way are going to help you in the other direction. So it's leveling you up. It's making you stronger, and but life. As much as you want it to, as much as you want to think that you have ultimate influence over what you're doing over life, you really don't. You really don't. Life happens. Life just happens. And so it's important to just follow the groove, follow the way that it's pointing you all the time, and not overthink. Don't beat yourself up when things don't go the way that you think it should be going, because there'll be another path. So let's just see what he says towards the end.
It's telling you, the message underlying this is, you cannot transform yourself, is giving you the message that the you that you imagine to be capable of transforming yourself doesn't exist. In other words, an ego, an I, separate from my emotions, my thoughts, my feelings, my experiences, who is supposed to be in control of them, cannot control them because it isn't there. And as soon as you understand that, things will be vastly improved.
Wow. So the conscious you, or the conscious I, that thinks that it has power over decision making and over changing things, actually doesn't exist. That consciousness that we have, where we understand that we understand that we're a person, and we understand that we're a human, isn't really there. We're actually just an animal. And that's our physical, the animal. But yes, we're incredible that we can think about existence and life and consciousness. But all of these things that we think we can change, and who we are and the way that we define ourselves, they're all an illusion of the brain, formed over however many years we've lived, based on what people have told us, what we've seen in the mirror, the experiences that we've had, the fears that we have, the stresses that we have, how we deal with those things. All of these things create a consciousness and an ego that then believes that it's strong enough and it's righteous enough to forge a different path. But then when you look at everybody else, everybody's the same. Everybody has their problems. Everybody has their hopes and fears. Nobody's perfect. So that side of it's an illusion. So just relax. Realize that it's not that big a deal. Don't think too much. Allow yourself to just follow your heart, follow what your instinct is telling you to do. Like, if you're at college or university and you're not enjoying it, is it just because you're not enjoying it? Is it because you're having to get up early in the morning, or is that actually part of you saying, actually, this isn't what me as a person, this isn't what I need in my life. I actually need something else. And so instead of suffering through that, make the change, do something else. If you're not enjoying your work, is that the job that you're doing at the moment? Is that what you were made to do? Is that what you always wished you would be doing? Or in the back of your mind, is it telling you shouldn't be doing this? Like, you're a free person, you're an incredible person. Why are you putting yourself through this? And that's the overthinking. Just do it. Just change it. Just do it now. Whatever it is. There's a lot of people out there that maybe need to hear it. Don't think too much, because once you start to realise that kind of life's a bit of an illusion, it's a bit of a game, it's not that deep, it's just enjoying a series of experiences, then you can completely change your life and just enjoy being, rather than enjoy trying to attain something that's unattainable, and wasting that time and energy that could be used enjoying the experience that is life. So anyway, I hope that you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it kind of helps you. If you've got any input for that, any ideas, any thoughts on it, then let me know, because I'd be really interested. But Alan Watts is incredible. If you can go on YouTube and search for Alan Watts and listen to some of his teachings. They're written lectures. They're really incredible. Amazing guy.